Could you repeat that? We could not hear that, Paul and I.
Yeah, sure. So the Sherpas have got to a point they can't go any higher. It's too dangerous on the ridge line because of a big cornice. And so they're coming back down and not going any higher. So I don't think it makes sense for us to go any higher. They said there's deep snow up there and big avalanche hazard, especially now that the sun is hitting it.
Okay, Garrett, that's loud and clear. Thank you. That helps us and makes the decision easy. So we're coming down. Thank you.
Copy that, Bill. Nick and I will wait here at Camp 2 for you guys.
Okay, over and out.
Well, like I said, still a hell of an adventure, Bill. That does make it a lot easier, right?
Hello, everyone. It's Bill Burke sitting here on the Phaetek face, Burke-Kang. We're at about 22,200 feet. Paul is filming this, Paul Phaetek. So we're within 500 and some feet of the summit of Burke-Kang. You might want to point that out, Paul.
Pretty steep stuff.
This mountain has been by a multiple of 100 harder to climb than I thought it would be. There's no level sections, it's all steep vertical face. You can just see the look down this Phaetek face, how steep it is. And but we made pretty good progress, stuck to our plans, and we're on our way to the summiting. We lost several members over the course of the last week or so, and now we've lost all members, and it's devastating. It's devastating to come to this. We've worked so hard, but we've got a team of Sherpas and line fixers up on the ridge line just 500 feet from where I'm sitting here, and they radioed back down to us that the ridge line for Burke-Kang is totally unsafe, heavily seracked, steep vertical. I'm talking 90-degree pitches, ice pitches that you have to move up, and because of the snowfall and the sunny days we're enjoying here, heavy avalanche risk. They were not even able, because of that, the Sherpas, to get the lines fixed all the way to the summit. They stopped the line fixing just now, declared it at this point unclimbable because you can't fix lines to the summit and you can't climb without lines. So they declared their effort over. They did their best, God bless them. This is the line right here that you see that they were trying to fix it right here, actually. And they were trying to get this line up to the summit, and it just wasn't possible because of the snow is very heavy. You can't even walk through it. So we're going to have to declare this success at 22.2, and we've all had a great time.
I thought maybe this would just be a passing fancy, wouldn't last long, and he would go on to maybe something else. As he got closer to retiring, he started looking into bigger mountains. Then he made it his goal to climb the 7 summits, the highest mountain on every continent. And I realized when he said that, oh my gosh, Everest is in that list. But I thought maybe he'll quit before he gets to that high one. But he didn't. He started, and I supported him. I'm having a harder time as he's going to Everest repeatedly, or that region, and I've kind of hinted toward, I don't know if he would call it hinting, maybe stopping this. It hasn't sunk in.
This is my office. My family calls this my museum because I've kind of turned it into a museum, mostly mountaineering stuff, but other things too that are family related that are really near and dear to me.
Growing up, my dad had high standards for all of us and expected really, to do our best in school. watched what boyfriends we had.
My dad has always supported me in everything I've done. And I love that about him. Even as a kid, if I came to him with something crazy, stupid, he was never the one to be like, no, you can't do that.
If I ever asked him for help on homework, I needed a lot of time, because even if he didn't know how to do it, he would figure it out. And then it would take quite a while to figure it out, and I just wanted to say, oh, if it's okay, forget it, I'll be fine. I'll ask someone at school tomorrow, or I got it, okay.
Yeah, he was very thorough. You know, anything he does thoroughly.
But super loving and great family trips, but he was, he knew what he wanted from us, and we respected him a lot.
This is my photo collage of my climb of the 7 summits, but you'll see 8 photos here, and the reason for that is there's a dispute about whether Australia is a continent or is part of Australasia. So I climbed the highest mountain on both of those claimed continents, so I actually have climbed 8 summits on 7 continents.
I would not in a million years have guessed that he'd be climbing mountains in his retirement.
I didn't think it would go this far.
Well, going back with the homework question, you know, he gets obsessed over doing it right, making it the best, always making it better than what the teacher asked for, you know, giving more, and then, you know, climbing mountains. I'm sure it just, you know, just kind of grew.
This is the flag that I've taken to the top of every mountain I've climbed.
It was actually when Bill was working in Hong Kong, and we had an apartment there, and he would go out on weekends and do some climbing in the local hills of Hong Kong, and entered some sort of competition that I know I went there. I was in Hong Kong, and he was climbing all night. He'd go out with his headlamp on and training for some special mission. That was the first that I saw any interest in any kind of climbing or walking or...
I thought it was cool when he was doing the 7 summits or the 8 summits. And Everest was always like, oh, I hope he isn't crazy enough to do that. And his mom, my grandma, when she was alive, it was always a fear she had, like, he better not.
My most proud moment of all took place in 2009 when I was 67 years old, and I became the oldest American to summit Mount Everest and come back alive. In 2014, I climbed Mount Everest again from the north side. I wanted to get Mount Everest from both the south and the north, but when I did that, I was 72 years old, and I broke my own record and became not only the oldest American to climb Mount Everest, but the oldest person living outside of Asia to summit Mount Everest.
The goals were just kind of changing and becoming more extreme, and he was getting older. And I think that slowly I became more and more concerned.
I think he wants to prove that he's only old on the outside, but not the inside.
When Nepal named this mountain after him,
I thought it was pretty cool.
It says Burke-Kang. Do you see it there? I can't without my glasses.
It's a very demanding mountain, more treacherous than Everest.
I completely understand why he wants to climb the thing.
This is the Ollie Power hat that I mentioned earlier that I've worn to the summit of Mount Everest both times I got to the top. It says Ollie Power. Of course, Ollie is my grandson.
Ollie's mom had a hard pregnancy with Oliver.
You know, Ollie is severe, and, you know, he can't talk and he can't write. He needs help eating.
I know the first thing that we heard that we thought there may be something wrong with him is he may be deaf. And now I think if only he was deaf.
He inspires me and powers me to climb these alpine peaks. So I take this on every climb.
As you know, Bill is the type of person that whatever he did in life, whether it was taking a class in college or in law school, or chairing a committee, or whatever he did, helping his mom, he did it completely. He did everything possible to get the best grade, to be the best son, to be the best father, to be the best husband. And he has been. If he tries something, he goes for it all the way.
He's determined. He's always been determined.
These are Buddhist prayer flags that I brought home from me from Nepal. And this is Buddhist scripture written on these flags. You see them all over Nepal and Tibet. They're hanging usually on bridges and where the wind blows through them. And the Buddhists believe that when the wind blows through these flags, it sends that scripture up.
My prayer would be that he will make it this year, and then he won't want to try it again. We'll see.
If he summits this time, I'll be really happy for him. And if he were to go back after that, I think at that point I would say I'm not any part of it. Don't hold me to that, but I would be really upset.
Initially, I was very supportive. And I'm not supportive now. I just have mixed feelings about what he's doing now.
It's not very well received in the family.
When I arrive in Nepal or Tibet, whichever mountain I may be climbing at the time, when I get into the mountains, when I get out of the cities and into the mountains at base camp, I put this around my neck and it goes inside my shirt, so it's right over my heart. And that's where it stays the whole time I'm climbing or trekking up to the camps, whatever it may be. That's where this stays, and I don't take it off until I'm safely back because it's very sacred to me.
He always tells me he'll be safe. Sharon, I'm not going to put myself in that kind of danger. I weigh it, and I haven't made bad decisions yet. And that's true. So I've never said, absolutely you cannot go.
I don't think any of us could talk him out of going on this trip.
I'd rather him stay home and be here for his kids, for his grandkids.
And I can see him thinking, I've promised I won't do this again. So I'm going to maybe take a chance that I wouldn't have done if it might be in my future again and I could try again. I don't want that to happen.
Ice axe, trekking poles.
I've told him I think maybe it's not climbable.
Burke-Kang hat, which I'm going to give to every team member.
So if he doesn't make it.
This is the American flag I'm going to take with me this trip.
That's okay. You know, no one's going to make it.
I trust that he's going to do as good a job on that mountain as he can do, for sure. But it's unpredictable weather. It's a mountain that I think is basically unclimbable. He needs to accept that.
The bummer for me right now, looking at all my gear and spending the day trying to get this organized and out here, is I can't find my Burke-Kang flag. I had a flag made about this big that says Burke-Kang, which I want to take up to the summit and have a photo of me on the summit with that flag. In fact, the team with the flag. And I can't find it. It's not here.
I just think in his mind he feels that he hasn't finished this challenge, or he hasn't given it everything he can.
He always brings me into his office and shows me again where his life insurance policy is and you know, where the bills are, and that's the kind of thing I'm like, I don't like that that's the reality of a trip like this.
I get it. He's worked his butt off his whole life, served his family and everyone around him extremely well, and so there's a part of me that says he has the right to do what he wants to do.
Because you just never know if you're going to get that phone call that things didn't go well.
I've learned to adjust with each mountain getting higher and higher, and
Sharon, you know where my Burke-Kang flag is?
we're at this point.
Like the pine trees lining the winding road, I got a name, I got a name. Like the singing bird and the croaking toad, I've got a name, I've got a name. And I carry it with me like my daddy did, but I'm living the dream that he kept here. Moving me down the highway, rolling me down the highway, moving ahead so life won't pass me by.
When the mountain was named after Bill Burke, Bill had already retired from climbing, or so he said. You know, he had climbed both from the Nepal side and from the Tibet side. It was just a recognition of his achievement and his contribution to Nepal that the government named the peak Burke-Kang. It surprised us that Bill is back here climbing us, but at the same time, if anybody would want to do a first attempt on a peak named after themselves, it would be that very person.
किन आजकल तिम्रो मन मैलो भो फेरि हाम्रो लप्पने कहिले हो
I knew Bill had always wanted to go back to climb Burke-Kang. We had talked about it over the last couple of years, so me and Bill had been in conversation about going back. It was very, very all short notice, like within probably 3 weeks, the planning and everything getting set up. Me and Mika was heading to climb the Matterhorn, and I just happened to say to Mika, would you be interested? And we made it happen then.
Noel and I were planning a climb to the Matterhorn in Europe. Bill and I had only met by phone. During that planning, he invited me to join him on this unclimbed expedition.
You can spend more time there negotiating that.
And obviously conditions will determine where everything is.
Burke-Kang is a newly open peak, well, relatively new compared to the other peaks that are open. And because it's newly opened, it's never been climbed before. And even to get to Burke-Kang is a big logistical task. The last village, the last inhabited village on the trail to Burke-Kang is Gokyo village itself. And after Gokyo, you still need to trek 2 days before you get to base camp of Burke-Kang. And you have to cross over Nepal's biggest glacier, the Mozumba Glacier. And there is no, well-trodden path over that glacier. Every time the porters and the team have to go over that glacier, a new path has to be sought out. It's so difficult just to get there, and we haven't even started climbing yet.
Same as prior years. We'll go from base camp up that East Couloir to Camp 1.
Now, when the team arrives in base camp, it's going to be, first of all, a very tough climb up to Camp 1. Because Camp 1 sits on a saddle and the route to Camp 1 is below an icefall. And they have to climb through a couloir that has a lot of scree in it. And as we all know, if you take one step in scree, you slip two steps down. So it's going to be a hard haul. And then when you get to Camp 1, after that, between Camp 1 and Camp 2, there's a big snowfield. This year, I hear that the crevasses have opened up. So now our team will have to negotiate their way around or through or over crevasses. And so, we'll need all the experience and all the training that our Sherpas and Noel and Micah and Bill have to get through this. When you get to Camp 2, you are now at the head wall. And straight up is the summit ridge. Like I said, nobody's climbed it before, so nobody knows which is the best way to go through. Once they're there, they're going to have a look and they're going to negotiate their own way through, which is the way mountaineering should be done. Mountaineering should be done by the mountaineers on the mountain, not by somebody sitting in the city and looking it up on Google Earth.
So now we have the Himalayan database. There are, over I'd have to look up the numbers, but we have over 450 peaks in that database. We have over 60,000 members in this database who, and I still run around and I try and keep track of everybody who's climbing Everest and Makalu and you name them, but it's getting harder and harder because there's so many people now.
Our base camp, what I would call our base camp, is right in there. Somewhere in here.
Back in the days, in the 60s and 70s, there were so many first ascents, new routes, whereas now it's changed. how high is Burke-Kang? It's
6,947 meters, I think.
Okay.
22,775 feet, I think.
But now with Bill, I sit down, I have a map, he shows me, you know, where do we go, where's base camp, you know, put my base camp there, camp 1, camp 2. 6,942 meters.
Is what?
But your mountain.
That translates into how many feet?
God, hang on,
To make sure it's right. I think of it feet.
6,942. It's 22,775.
That's it.
So
That's
it becomes more relevant, and the questions we ask for the database become more relevant for something like Burke-Kang, because it's a first ascent. Everybody has different reasons to climb these mountains.
I know Bill's got the climbing experience from the day one since we met, and it's just really in the last 4 months he told me he's a 47% Irish, so maybe it's the Irish that we work together well. And I've climbed with Mika before, and I wouldn't have asked Mika if I didn't think that he was capable of doing the climb.
There's a saying, the best mountaineer is the oldest mountaineer.
Gray hair on a mountain is very positive, and no, he's got a few gray hairs at this point.
It's a 3-person team to get ourselves to the summit. Getting back down safe is the main thing.
These are the guys that I want to climb with.
You start even in Kathmandu to make sure that everybody's got the right gear, and there's no point in going out into the mountain and somebody hasn't got the proper gear, because it's not going to be a success. And you need everybody to be in the same wavelength as yourself. Like, you're only as strong as the weakest link. So it's just really helping each other, and you know, that's what a guide should be doing.
I don't think it's so much conquering the mountains. I think Bill has this innate love for mountains, which has brought him back to Nepal over and over the last decade. And I think it's just a combination of that. To do trekking, you do need to be a little bit mentally strong, because the first few days, as your body gets used to it, you do need to have a certain resilience just to get over the muscle aches. You know, you probably haven't walked 6 hours a day in a long time, if ever. That's one thing. But then as you get higher into the mountains, your body also needs to acclimatize literally to the altitude. You can't just take a helicopter to high altitude, say 15,000 feet or something, and just say, well, I'm just going to avoid trekking. Because if you drop yourself literally at that altitude, you are going to start to die very quickly. Within a few hours, you'll be very sick, and probably before the night passes, you'll be dead. The only way to avoid that is to go very slowly, and each day climb an increment of 300 meters, which would be about 1,000 feet a day, and take a rest day every 3,000 feet. So what that does, there's a physiological process that happens inside the body, inside the cells, that makes you adapt. So, you know, your red blood cell count goes up, the way your body behaves, your mitochondria in your cells, they behave differently. All these little changes happen so that you can live up in altitude.
My name is Noel Hanna, and I was a police officer for 15 years. I was serving in Northern Ireland in just the end of the Troubles, really, in the late 80s through to the 90s. Ceasefire came in 96, and I was started off as an ordinary police officer, but then went into an anti-terrorist unit. And then the last 5-6 years I was a canine officer with my dog Tango. And it was that stage where I was beginning to lose interest and lose the adrenaline in the police force. So I sort of transferred my adrenaline from the police force to my climbing and adventure racing.
Well, he wasn't in our team, he was in our team. But
It was actually in 1997 I competed in a 100-mile stage race in the Himalayas, and that's really where I got the love of the high mountains. And the race was ran over 13,000 feet, but in the distance you could see Everest, Lhotse, Chaoyu, and it was just then I said to my friend that I was running with, I said to him, someday I'll be on top of those, and he sort of looked at me as if to say, you haven't even been drinking and you're saying things like that, but I proved him wrong. The first time I went to Everest didn't go so well for myself because at 7,000 metres I took retinal hemorrhaging in both eyes. And I made phone calls to the US, phone calls back to all the major hospitals, and they told me that if I climbed again or higher while I had the retinal hemorrhage, there was a possibility of permanent blindness. So I decided there's no mountain worth losing your eyesight. So I went back in 2006, and that was the first time I summited Everest from the Tibetan north side. The good thing about obviously what I've learned from the police force is carried forward a lot in mountaineering. There's no point in looking at your feet while you're climbing. You have to look maybe 10 metres ahead or 20 metres ahead or 50 metres ahead, or even in some cases with the climbing you have to look maybe 500 metres ahead if there's dangers ahead. And it's the same as the police force. Whenever you were out in patrol, you weren't looking at the doors that were close to you, you were looking at the doors ahead. And it's the same thing that if you're in the streets and there was no children out playing, well, you knew there was something going to happen. And it's the same thing on a mountain. If the weather's bad and there's nobody else in the mountain, you have to really think again to yourself, well, have I got the right weather forecast, or have they got the wrong weather forecast? And it's just really knowing your own mind and making your own mind up, and hopefully you make the right decisions. You always had to work as a team. There was never really an individual, so you had to work as a team, and everybody had to be doing the same job. If you didn't work as a team, you really ended up dead. So it's just really helping each other, and that's what a guide should be doing. You have to know your Sherpas, and you have to obviously have a good relationship with them and leave the other. You could be the best map reader in the world, but you mightn't be able to find trails.
some of the stuff then whenever we get to Pading, we go to the temple and whatnot.
Sherpas have a great reputation in mountaineering because over the last 500 or 600 years living in the mountains, they have genetically adapted to high altitude. It makes them strong, it gives them a great amount of resilience, it gives them a lot of endurance.
Well, the Sherpa culture, most of the Sherpas, at least when you get into the mountains, are Buddhists. And they're deeply religious, they're deeply spiritual. You hear them chanting on their treks up, and so that's a very big part of their culture. They're very peaceful, spiritual people. And when you look at the way they live, when you look at the conditions in which the people live and their children, it's very harsh.
It's very harsh. They have very little, and yet you always see a smile on their face.
Just by their nature, the Sherpas are very relaxed people, and you know, take things as they come. And so all these characteristics have made us Sherpas sought out on expeditions, and it has been said that without the Sherpas, 99% of expeditions in the mountains would not be possible in the Himalayas.
So I got into mountain climbing after a car accident I was involved in a number of years ago. I suffered whiplash to my neck and resulted in me having to have a surgery where I had a double discectomy and fusion, C5 to 7, and that really caused a vulnerability in me that I wasn't comfortable with. I thought big, what can I do? How can I make myself feel better with this vulnerability? I needed a challenge, and what bigger challenges are out there than climbing Everest?
Everest, huh? Everest. Yeah.
I came over to Nepal with the intention of doing some trekking and some climbing. So I came back from that and joined Nima's team, which had 3 other members at that point, and became that guy that comes over and climbs Everest because he can. You need to climb with people that not only you trust and you feel safe with, but that you enjoy being around, because you're not always on the mountain. You're getting to the mountain. All mountaineers have a passion for it, otherwise they wouldn't do it, because there are a lot of obstacles to mountaineering, including family, friends, loved ones. But why is a first ascent just so enticing? Yeah, nobody's ever done it.
So I had my bottle and drank down my last swallow, and he bummed a cigarette and he asked me for a and the night got deathly quiet, and his face lost all expression. Said, "You're gonna play the game, son, you better learn to play it right. You've got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, and know when to run. You never count your lessons when you're sitting at the table. There'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done."
Allare nani kesma birano desma mai parirana bho. Allare nani kese maya lagne timrai pese nahune rai chora. Thank you.
Right now we're at Gokyo. We came up to Gokyo yesterday from Machermo. About a 3-hour hike. Really nice day. Kind of an easy day coming up. And we're going to take a rest day here. And hopefully tomorrow morning we're going to take the helicopters up to base camp and start the real work. The team is doing really well. We haven't had any really serious sickness. Everyone is feeling a little bit the altitude, but that's normal, that's customary. You expect that and don't have to worry too much about that. But they're all doing well, and the team's bonding together perfectly. I love that aspect of the trip. We're having a great time. I just consider it a huge privilege and honor to be up into these mountains deep in the Himalayas and enjoying these vistas and snow-covered peaks and the people and the children. That makes the whole adventure worthwhile. If you summit, that's a big bonus. If you don't, well, the mountain will be in the exact same place it is this year or next year.
I got cheese and ham.
We are at base camp, Burke-Kang base camp, which is about 17,500 feet, I think in terms of feet rather than meters. But we just arrived here about an hour ago. Beautiful spot, got the mountain behind me, Burke-Kang mountain, and it's just great to be back.
On the ridge, and we follow the ridge up to the wee bump near the top where it flattens out. That's where they've got the ropes into. 6'4".
To the beginning of the ridge or further up?
No, see where the rocks is halfway up the ridge?
Yeah.
And then you go on up till where it flattens out a wee bit.
Yes.
To the wee bump, that's where the ropes is into.
And that's where the crevasses
start?
That's
where the crevasses are, yeah. Once we get up to 6'4", just want to see what the crevasses are like and try and get a route around it. Whereas with the two of them, they couldn't rope up together to go through it. Whereas the four of us, we can rope up, and at least if one falls into a crevasse, we can pull him up out.
Plan is that tomorrow Noel is going to head up with 3 of our Sherpas to assess the situation above Camp 1. Noel has been with the Sherpa team here. There's 4 Sherpas here for several days already. And so they have set lines, the Sherpas and Noel have set lines up to Camp 1 and partway from Camp 1 up to Camp 2. But up on the ridge line there from Camp 1 to Camp 2, they ran into some pretty significant crevasses, which we weren't expecting. But they got the line set to there, but had to turn around there and come back down. So tomorrow they're going back up. They're going to see what the situation looks like at the point where they stop fixing to Camp 2 and try to find routes around those crevasses or over them. We have 3 ladders here in base camp to cross the crevasses with, and what we need to know now is that enough? So how long did it take you to get from the base of the mountain to C1?
Probably 2.5, 3 hours, because we had to stop halfway up to pick up ropes in the snow pickets.
Okay. I guarantee you it'll take me longer than that, so I'm going to get a head start.
I'm going up with the Sherpas tomorrow.
Yeah.
We're going to leave probably in the morning at 7.
Okay. with this mountain having been named after me, I'd be love to be the first person to stand on top. That'd be great. That'd be great. But if it's not me, I want it to be somebody else that I know. Whether it's a Sherpa, it's their country. I would love to see a Sherpa stand on top. The first time, I would love to see a teammate. I want someone to top out, and if it's not me, one of my teammates or a Sherpa would be the thrill of my life, because I don't know if I'll come back. If I can't make it this year, I really don't know. I'm not going to say never, but I'm not going to say I'll be back next season. So I want someone to top out, whether it's me or a teammate or a Sherpa. That would be the thrill of my life, to go home with a summit. And part of the reason I feel that way is then I won't have the urge to come back again in the next season, and I can start thinking about other adventures that are on my mind.